Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. Welcome back to the show. So grateful to have you. If you're here with us and you're live, say hello. We want to know you're here, and we look forward to your questions, which I hope you have them in spades because it is a time-old question we've been trying to answer for years, and the audience has changed, and how we show up for them has changed. And we are going to revisit this question of how we show up for our audience as both sales and marketing together as one. I know. Are we done with this yet? We are not. Clearly. I am here today with the one and only Clark Barron. I feel like Clark came out of the woodwork. I don't know how you all feel about this human, but for me, he came out of the woodwork like a shotgun. Like I didn't see him, and then all of a sudden I saw him, and I saw him everywhere, and I said, who is this human? And I must know, which is why he is here with us today. Let me give you a little background about Clark so that we're all on the same page of why he is on my show, because he is a cybersecurity marketer, and he has had an interesting journey, which we are going to hear in a second. A little background. As the founder and CEO of Demand Gen Therapy, Clark created a sanctuary for marketing professionals to be real, be heard, and be understood. It's what we're all seeking in the world, period. With over 15 years of experience in strategizing and executing multi-channel campaigns, he has a passion for uncovering and sharing the raw, unfiltered, and authentic stories that lie beneath the surface of marketing narratives. He also leverages his expertise in growing marketing, cybersecurity, and B2B strategy to help clients expose and exploit, I have questions about that word, gaps in their marketing strategies and tactics, transforming weakness into levers for unstoppable demand generation. He is in secure market position. He attacks growth head on, delivering value-driven content, targeted buyer journeys, and optimized media channels that boost ROI and conversion rates. Whoa! What a journey. Hi, Trevor. Good to see you, sir. And Clark, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here. I am super happy to be on.
It's been a long time coming. We're excited to have you and to unpack all of the things. All of the things before we peel back the multiple onions on multiple things. Sweet t-shirts. Yes, Trevor. We'll make that happen. We'll look at that.
We'll get to my obsession with Costco.
I miss Costco. I moved to the UK 3 years ago, and I gotta say, Target and Costco up there on my list.
You have Tesco, don't you? It's not the same.
Tesco and Costco.
Not the same? Am I? Okay.
I don't know.
I think I just heard that at some point.
Well, whoever told you that was... Well, I'm also not technically in the UK. I'm on a subset of the UK, and we get like a subset of everything. We have a subset Waitrose. We have a subset Tesco. We have an alliance. We have a co-op, but we do not have a Costco.
Gotcha.
Or a Target. What I would give for a Target. Tangent. Get ready. We're going to have lots of those. I love tangents.
I've been known to really lean into my verbosity when it comes to waxing poetic about whatever I happen to be ranting about at any given moment. As I think you know that about me.
I do. I've been paying attention to you, Clark, and your show. Like I said, you came out of the woodwork, out of nowhere, and you've been everywhere. And between your LinkedIn posts and your show, you have a lot to say, and we're going to get to that. Why don't you tell us about your story, though, of, what do you do now and how you got there?
Yeah, so I was on the agency side for like the first half of my career in creative digital agencies, small ones, big ones. I was working with everybody from local bakeries and attorneys to, on the other side of that coin, Exxon and Jimmy Buffett and everything in between. That world, uh, especially if you're early on in your career, and it'll chew you up and spit you out. You know, in-house marketers, you have one client. Um, Agency side, you have, 47.
So many.
Yeah. Whew. Um, but yeah, so once I became just completely burned out and disillusioned,
On which
before
side?
uh, on the agency side, every side, yeah, I didn't know what I left that industry, started taking some freelance gigs, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I ended up hiking the Appalachian Trail, and almost just didn't come back. Um,
Fair.
yeah, it's they had to drag me kicking and screaming. Um, but I had always romanticized cybersecurity and infosec and that world. I was watching Jason Eastreet talk at DEF CON on YouTube about physical engagements and pen testing years before I was ever in this industry, because it's just one of the most awesome things ever.
I gotta
Um,
know. I'm sorry, I don't usually interrupt people on this, but I gotta know how how you found that YouTube channel, because it's not something that we just generally stumble upon, which feels like you did. It's normally something we end up into our career by happenstance, but it feels like
yeah,
you found it
s-
early on before you actually started marketing to it. So how did you find that YouTube channel?
no clue. I do not remember. I've actually tried to think about this before, and like, where did my brain get to that point? Like, Mr. Robot wasn't out at that point.
Such a good show.
The other, like, eh,
Mhm.
whatever's in the pop culture zeitgeist at the time, those magnets, like, they weren't around, unless you count like the original Hackers movie or
Right.
anything like that. Or,
War games.
yeah, oh yeah. Uh, yeah, so I'd been watching a lot of pen testers, a lot of social engineers. It was just, that's the coolest stuff ever. Like, it sounds cool. Like, you mean you get paid to like trick people into letting you into their server room, and then like you're trying to help them get better at security, and so you're running these physical engagements while people are like uh trying to break web apps and stuff like what? To me, that I guess that comes from my obsession with like heist movies. If that's, there's an
Yes. Oh,
adjacent. Does
so
that make
many good
sense?
ones. Yes. So
Yeah.
many
So
good
like,
heist movies. So
yeah. So
favorite
you
heist movie then? It's an important question.
the original Ocean's 11,
Yeah, right? The original with the little buggies.
right?
That was the first one that came to mind for me too. Yeah.
The Italian Job, um, Inside Man with Clive Owen, extremely good.
Clive Owen.
Yeah.
Yes. I
Um,
don't know
but,
that one, but I know Clive. I'm going to go check it out.
oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, so I started to realize that a lot of what these social engineers and these pen testers, especially the ones that do physical engagements, um, I started to notice that a lot of the language they were using and a lot of the tactics and the psychology behind them, that sounds kind of familiar. Kind of sounds like what I do in a sense. And so it started to occur to me that a lot of the soft skills involved in red teaming, social engineering, are a lot. There's a lot of similarities between those and the ones of a skilled marketer. Um, we're trying to access something, whether it be data, information, or an account. Get the attention. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to get somebody to click on something, right? Um, and
And
so,
just to be clear, it's an interesting dichotomy because you're talking about us as marketers trying to help people click on something to get to a solution. On the flip side, pen testers are also trying to do that, but from like a security, will you click on this, but I hope you don't. It's sort of like a
right,
interesting, to your point, psychological dichotomy of,
Yeah,
as marketers, we want you to click on it, but as pen testers, we really hope
and
you won't.
that is one of the most difficult things for marketers in cybersecurity to realize is that, yes, pen testers do that. Like, we build personas, malicious actors do recon. They
Same.
develop payloads to exploit vulnerabilities. We find pain points and develop tailored content to fit our ICP. Like, the similarities in the high level architecture, like step by step of um, a cyber attack, when compared to a marketing campaign, tell me the difference.
Kind of similar, but
Right.
also different outcome. The hope of different outcomes.
Yeah. Intent matters.
Intent. Yes.
Intent matters for sure. And so once my brain started moving in this completely unhinged direction, I got a little cavalier in my job hunting, and I applied to be a pen tester with zero technical experience whatsoever. Up in North Alabama, in Huntsville, there's a lot of security stuff, infosec, DoD contractors like Boeing, Raytheon. Everybody's up here. NASA's up here. And so I sent an email. Like, there wasn't a job available. I just sent an email to this red teaming firm. Giant email where I just lay it all out there because I was mid existential crisis, didn't know what I wanted to do. I was like, hell, we'll just see what happens.
Nothing to lose.
Yeah, exactly. So I sent this email, and it was made up of all these comparisons and laying out, the side by sides of how those skills are similar and yada yada yada. Nothing, just ghosted. Yeah, understandably. Like, what kind of maniac does that? I get it. And I was like, I just kind of wrote it off. Whatever, And so I continued to take freelancing gigs and whatnot. About a year and a half goes by, and I get a phone call. And it is the CEO of that red teaming firm. And he had founded his own security awareness training startup. And he said, I've been thinking about that email for over a year. I want you to come run my marketing department. So I inadvertently just kind of social engineered my way into this industry. And from then it was off to the races.
Because cybersecurity has like this glorious, I think by design and also well done, moat sort of around it of,
yep,
you can't get into the industry unless you sort of know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody, which happened for us, right? So like, we got brought in through a client who left one company, found their way into a cybersecurity company, brought us in, and then once you're in cyber, you tend to leave and go to the next thing, leave and go to the next thing, and it's all in cyber. And so that's how we as a company were able to find our way into working with these amazing companies on a true mission to make the world a better place. Thank God somebody is. So it is interesting that you sort of set out normally people sort of, I don't want to say find their way, but like they have an adjacent parallel to it of like, they apply for a job and then there's parallels there and then they make the leap. But for you were after it. You were like, nope, this is what I want to do. I want to be in cyber. I want to do this thing. And to break that email down for me, I think we're all sort of curious of like, what could you have said that would stick with somebody for a year for them to figure out where it made sense to bring you in? What was in that email? I gotta know. I'm on the edge of my seat here, Clark.
So I remember distinctly saying, I know that you're probably laughing at all this. And I promise you that there is no way that I could write a single line of Python. But I guarantee you, I can convince someone to let me into their server room. And it was that kind of, yeah, I, make them remember you. Whether they think you're a psychopath or not, make them remember you. But I think I made a pretty decent case for perhaps shifting perspective and looking outside of super technical roles of like, there are other people that would be good at this. You're just not looking at them, you know? So maybe that was it. While I was at that company, he actually wanted me to go to DEF CON and compete in the social engineering CTF, which it logistics and timing and whatnot, we didn't get to end up doing it. But he was like, I'm gonna make that dream come true for you. Like, yeah, I like after he read the email, after I was actually at the company, he was like, oh, you meant it. Like this, you're not joking. I really think you could. And so he was wanting to like put his marketing person up against all these like pro social engineers. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. Sure, whatever. Just blind confidence. It's,
Did a dream come true? Did you fulfill the dream?
No, the logistics, like we didn't actually
Right.
end up getting to go that year, but
He
yeah,
was willing to do it.
I was definitely willing to. As soon as he mentioned that, I was like, sign me up. Yeah, what have I got to do? But yeah, there's so many different personality types and so many different brains that work like that just kind of get it, and when you combine that with an industry that like is so mission driven, it's something that I just really always identified with. And I mean, that's one of the main drivers of pursuing something in security, because I'm well aware of my limited technical abilities. I actually started learning to write code, like not markup, like actual code and whatnot. And there was this point where I realized I can't do this. This is not how my brain works. And
It's hard.
but I still wanted to contribute. I still wanted to be part of the solution. And so if I can't do it, then I promise you that I will do my best to help you do what you do. I'll be the biggest cheerleader you've got, the collective you, the practitioners in the trenches, staying up 3 days in a stretch, just trying to protect everything.
So this company you were at, you were the head of marketing. Did you build a team? What was sort of the journey there?
Yeah, small one.
From a marketing perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, small one. And it was interesting. I really liked being in security awareness training, because that was a different, obviously a little bit more narrow of a lane, but I really enjoyed the psychology behind it. And, not only learning about the audience, which we'll get into that in a second, but also about the folks at organizations that are not technically minded, and trying to educate them in a way that actually sticks to where they care as well. Really interesting. But that my first venture at that company into cybersecurity industry, as much as I loved it and loved being in it, I had to admit at times that it was beating the crap out of me. It was trial by fire. I keep in mind, I had just like 2 years earlier been in Key West working on a campaign with Jimmy Buffett, and now I'm in cybersecurity dealing with that buying committee and that audience. Cool.
Totally different.
Polar opposites. And
Fish out of water.
yeah, but honestly, I loved how frustrating it was because it's a challenge, it's a puzzle. It's trying to figure out people and how they think. Um, and a lot of my failures there um, shaped the rest of my entire career and how I approach marketing uh, in cybersecurity, because I started to realize that oh, this is why they don't respond to marketing, because it looks like a lot of the things that they are world class experts at defending against. Really, we're gonna send emails
Trickery.
with links in them, and cold emails with links in them, and expect them to, like, if we can even hit their inbox, like
Hmm.
they're playing defense regardless of whether they even know it or not. That's just how their brain works. Um, and then I took note of all the things that, like, fear tactics, and that's when I learned the term FUD, and
Fud.
trying to scare people into buying something. Like, really, y'all think that's the, you sure
The,
about that? And
I
you
think
know
it
just
worked
as
for a
well as
hot
I,
second. Yeah, I think it worked for a hot second. That's why people latched onto it super hard and then realized, oh wait, probably not what
well,
we should be doing.
yeah, you know just as well as I do that there are still orgs out there doing that.
It
Um,
hurts my heart.
yeah, that and the ambulance chasing, and
Hmm.
it's, we
Yeah,
have to be really super self-aware of what we're doing and just be mindful of who we're dealing with and become a little bit more
yeah,
empathetic.
yeah. I have a couple questions. One's a comment, and then I want to layer onto this. But what's interesting about the setup of this conversation that I don't think many people have thought of. At least I haven't thought of it. Vulnerability here is that parallel of doing the same thing, this idea of trickery, of we're trying to trick our audience into. I started thinking about this idea of, is it a play? Is it a marketing play? Or is it a marketing ploy? Are we trying
Ooh,
to trick our audience into doing
tell me about that.
something?
That's interesting.
Yeah, a ploy being like we're trying to we're trying to see if we can sneak one past you, versus a play like on a football field of you do this thing, and if they take it, great. If they don't, fine. If they take it, then we're gonna pass the next player to next player to next player down the field. And if there's a fumble, there's a fumble. But there's a difference between a play of this is how we think it's gonna go versus a ploy of trying to see if I can trick you into doing this thing that I want you to do. And so it's the ploy and the cybersecurity audience that they can see down the field, and they can see that you're trying to trick them, and they're not playing, they're not here for it. But what caught me off guard in what you said that's making me sit here is this idea and this notion of they can see through it better than any other audience because it's what they're tracking on their end of who's trying to trick them, who's trying to trick their employees, who's trying to create these ploys to get into bank accounts and behind the scenes and into their files, right? And that's why they are on the defense to what you said. And I just think that's such an interesting dichotomy that we really haven't sat with as marketers, haven't called out loud. I think for those who are doing marketing well have already thought about this, but they haven't said it. Sometimes you gotta say the thing. So we're saying the thing, and I think that's important. Let's talk about, you got into cybersecurity. Yay. It's a passion of yours, 100%. You landed with this one company. Where did you go from there? Did you stay with that company for a while? Did you leap to another company? You're doing your own thing now. Let's tie up this story for folks so we can get into the heart of the conversation of where we need to go next, of like what we do with this information.
Yeah, so uh, I was there for a couple years and moved on to some other in-house gigs. Um, Went down the demand generation path. Generating demand. I worked in security awareness training, more like bespoke threat intelligence, um, to SEA adjacent SBOM type stuff, marketing into DevSecOps, etc. Um, and then I got where I am now. I started the Dimension Therapy podcast, and I didn't realize that in doing that, I'd inadvertently founded my own consultancy. Uh, until the DMs, I realized that I was getting DMs from folks saying, "So could you really like be a marriage counselor for our sales and marketing team?" And yes, yeah, absolutely. That's a great idea. He said, never having thought of that before. Um, and yeah, it just kind of blossomed from there. And that was kind of
Bark, bark, and fit.
yeah, my solo deal. And then the latest big jump has, um, for my next big trick, it would be what I'm doing now with Ronan.
With Ronan. Uh, this lends perfectly into our conversation because I think it's what we're all trying to figure out today of how we all get along. Can we all
Oh
just get
yeah.
along? But before we unpack that, let's talk about a challenge you're currently facing. So you're now the CEO, congrats, of Ronan, where you're working with I don't mean that where you're working with experts in the go-to-market motion, so its own thing, in helping companies, cybersecurity specifically, reach their audience in a really intentional way. I am summing that up very high level. There's a lot on the website. Go check it out. But that's currently what you're doing. In terms of what you're currently doing, what's the challenge? What's hard? What's life throwing at you right now?
Imposter syndrome mostly. Yeah.
Brother.
Our I honestly that's what keeps me up at night, not pipeline. It's imposter syndrome. It's trying to figure out whether I have anxiety about all this or I'm just super excited because we're going to take over the world. And there's a really fine line in that, and you really have to be mindful and just kind of sit with yourself and figure out which it is. So the challenge has been not working 17 hours a day.
Easy to do when you're excited about what you do.
Yeah, it's wild because I did actually have a day recently where my wife walks into my office and goes, "You've been working for 17 straight hours. Like you're a zombie. Like you're so in the zone." And she was like, "I'm not worried about you. Like, what is this? Like you're just operating on a different level." And I was like, "I don't know. Once you figure out what you want, when what you want to do aligns with what you know you were meant to do, yeah, you don't ever want to stop. You know,
I get it. I'm a business owner. I'm doing this
yeah,
for 12
exactly.
years.
Yeah, you know what I mean.
I do. I find myself working. I'm on British time, so sometimes I'll do most of the time right now because I'm in the thick of it. I'll do 9 to 5, and then I'll take a break for dinner with my family while I'm like texting through while making dinner, and then I'll work 8 to 10. It's not out of it's not out of a place of I have to be working. It's out of a place of I love what I do. And I love the people I work with, and I want to be there for them. And this is when they're online, and I'm here. And it's a delicate balance. And when you're new to it and you're throwing yourself into it, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I had to tell her that like it's not because she made the call out of like you don't seem stressed, and I was like I'm not at all. Like you just lose track of time. Yeah, I get it.
Easily. Imposter syndrome is real. I said I can do this thing. Can I do this thing? I think I can do this. thing. So
well there's a really weird internal conversation that happens right before you're ready to fly the in-house marketer nest. You know, is it time? Am I ready? You're never going to be ready. Just do it.
You don't know until you try.
Exactly. You know,
Cliche.
yeah,
Cliche.
yeah. But it's
It is
true.
what it is.
It is true. You know, jump out of the plane without a parachute. Whatever.
I highly recommend the parachute. The parachute being a nest egg of some description,
Yes.
and
Yep.
especially with family. And I love this podcast called Pivot, and Scott Galloway, who started many brand marketing companies, talks a lot about having your cabinet. Have a couple people on hand who are going to tell you
Oh,
like it
yep.
is, whether
Yep.
you want to hear it or not. So have your
Yep.
cabinet and have a nest egg, and that's your parachute. But 100%, if you have that, take the leap. You don't know until you try.
Yeah.
I'm here for all of these things, Clark. Let's talk about, I want to be cognizant of time, and clearly I could talk to you all day, which we don't have. So being mindful of that. You started to go out on your own from a consultancy standpoint in terms of being a therapist to marketing and sales, right? So why do you feel like marketing and sales needs a therapist to begin with?
Because they don't realize that the problems they have are the fault of neither one of them. Oftentimes they're at a very fundamental level, they're systemically pitted against each other because of misguided leadership. And you know, you could attribute this to VC capital or the economy or whatever. But we entered the realm, you know, quite some time ago of hypergrowth, growth at all cost. Everybody, including the janitor and everybody's Uber driver, are responsible for closed won revenue, and the metrics and KPIs they get so the waters get so muddy. You know, of course, marketers, you know, if you're a good marketer, you know why you're there. Everything you do is meant to drive qualified pipeline, velocity, you know, build a brand. Yeah, business outcomes. You know why you're there. But then we start attaching dollars to that, to those success metrics. And then you start a fist fight at a conference with your salespeople because you're arguing over attribution. And by attribution, I don't mean where your leads came from. I mean, who gets credit for this? Sales or marketing? What is marketing source? Like everything gets so blurry that we're fighting each other for no reason. And marketers think that sales just complains about the quality of the leads, or they don't they won't hunt, they won't try to source their own pipeline, they won't contribute to the top the entry point of the pipeline. And then of course all the issues that sales has historically with marketing. It's just one big vicious cycle, and so many fingers are being pointed, and they're all pointed in the wrong direction.
Well, what direction should it be pointed in?
There are a couple places, and I'm still exploring this, but for the most part, it would be in the direction of to the very beginning of the organization and how it was structured from day one. At what point did a marketer come on board? How much say did they have in what success to them looks like? Did marketing hire number one, regardless of when they came in? Did they have a conversation with the founder, CEO, whoever brought them on? Did they have some really difficult conversations? Did they know what they were going to be measured on? Did they know what the expectations were before they signed on?
Those are really big questions.
Did
Where
they
you're
did they
just
sell
thankful for having
themselves
a job. Yeah. No,
right? And
Yeah.
that's kind of the other side of this is, you have marketers that know something's up. This is starting to look like something that I did not sign up for, yet
Mhm.
everybody's just dodging riffs left and right. So what do you do? What can you do?
I think
Are
there's
you
two sides to this. Yeah, I want to be really thoughtful here. I want to be really thoughtful here because there's two sides to this. There's the what happened, what already happened, and we can't do anything about it, which I think is important because if you're stepping into this role moving forward, here's some ideas on how to do it better. So let's start there. Of you're a new marketer, you're probably maybe the first hire as the first marketing hire. How do you let's assume that a sales hire maybe already happened because that's generally what happens,
generally,
right?
yep.
Like you have a founder who's doing sales and then they can't do it all themselves and they bring in a sales guy and they're like, help me. And then they realize they need marketing, right? So marketing is generally after sales. Let's just make that assumption. So you're the first marketing hire and there's already a salesperson. So how do you start asking some of those tough questions? How do you put yourself in a position of working with sales? How do you do that like right out of the gate? I think that would be huge if people could do that, but it's not always the case. But let's just assume that's what's happening.
Where is your pipeline coming from without marketing, and what are the expectations of the marketing function once you bring it on, as far as their contribution to pipeline, and how is that, where does the onus lie at different points in that process with both sales and marketing? You want to try to find out whether, you want to try to find out the mindset of sales, because you might have a team of BDRs that are just knocking ones over the fence every day and, you know, booking meetings, whatever. But then alternatively, you might have none of that and just a bunch of AEs that all they want to do is close. They don't hunt. And so you have to ask, like, where's that come from? You know, and uh, another one to ask is, are you prepared to wait? Are you prepared to wait for this to actually take off? Because there's big differences in sales-led motions and bringing on marketing, and marketers are so rarely afforded the luxury of getting their own function up to speed before they're shown the door, especially in the era of hyper growth at all cost, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to pick apart the brain of the founder or whatever and see what they think about, like, how do they personally feel about um uh, marketing, and what are their expectations? Are
Okay,
they a
there's two
super
things here. Yeah.
yeah
No, I think that's really important. There's two things here. And one Trevor is doubling down on in terms of the sales team. And that sales is ecstatic when that first marketer, because up to that moment, they were watching their personal network get ground into dust. And A's hunt perfectly fine, but up to a limit. So marketing comes in and is able to help them grow past their own network. So let's talk about that partnership between that first marketing hire and sales. And what you're saying is you need to understand like where those limits are and let them understand how you're going to support them. Like there's some
manage
work to
expectations.
manage expectations. God, I
Yep.
love that. Yes. Yes. With
That's why I
sales.
mentioned, like, this is going to take time, you know,
Yeah.
because there's that window where um so just like Trevor, like, that's an amazing call out about they were watching their personal network get ground into dust. Well, there's going to be a window, especially at early stage, where sales is seeing that happen, and then the marketer comes on, and there's that window between, oh no, our network's going away, um, and when marketing actually starts to kick in. And it's a subset of that bigger window where marketing is hired to where it kicks in, where everybody's just sitting around tapping their toes doing nothing but looking at you to perform.
Oh God, that's hard. It's true.
Yep.
Marketing takes a minute to stand up. I also feel like there's increments you can make, right? Like there's one. I just did this, so and this is on a very small scale outside of cybersecurity. So take this with what you will. But I work with a coach, my coach, where I run his marketing, and we in 2 weeks stood up a paid ads campaign with very small volume. So I was like, I tempered expectations to the nth degree. I was like, this is a very small subset. It's a very tight. We're getting like 16 clicks, maybe a day if we're lucky. Like, let's be realistic. And we totally got a lead because it's so that hyper targeted. Like, there is possibility
Yep.
in doing that on a very small scale, but it's like, one every few weeks, right? So I think what you're saying is really important. Of we can move quickly, and there is low hanging fruit here, but the volume is not going to be. You're not all going to be running around chasing leads. It's just
Yeah,
not going to
absolutely.
happen. I want to get to the CEO side because I think that's really important in terms of the psychology. In terms of the psychology of how you temper this expectation with setting yourself up for success with the executive team out of the
Yeah.
gate. Like sometimes you're just so excited you got a job. Like, yes, I'm the
Sure.
first marketing hire. I totally got this. And the imposter syndrome sinks in and sort of like starts to play devil's advocate on that a little bit. But at the same time, you have to sort of like lean into the uncomfortable of here's how this is going to work. And this is how it's going to roll.
Yeah.
So talk me through that.
Yeah. To be an effective marketer, I mean, we all know that you have to be able to speak different languages. You have to be able to speak product or sales. Another one of those languages, probably the most important one, you have to be able to speak executive. Um, you have to be able to tie what you do to business outcomes. You can't solely lean on the qualitative without having quantitative proof to be able to show proof of concept, to be able to put forth motions to get qualitative. It's stuff like that. Um, and a couple questions, couple directions you need to go in are: what's their relationship like with the board? Are they in a position to where even if they are totally on board with what you want to do, like you've done your 90-day, you've audited everything, you've got the lay of the land, you've got a plan that you want to present, you present it, everybody's on board, ecstatic, you've got everybody hyped up, and then around 60 days past that, the end of the next quarter, their tone of voice starts to change, and you start hearing things like, where are the leads? The leads, generic nebulous terms like that, and like, no, we talked about this, right? Like we talked about the expectations of the timing and how long this is going to take. Try to figure out where their pain points are internally. We build uh, ICPs. You should be doing that internally on a personal level. Find out what they care about, what their motivators are, why they're in this, what stresses them out, what influences them. Um, what's a Always have a small W that you could cash in, just to balance if things are everybody's having a bad week. Have you know the equivalent of just like piece of candy.
Yeah. I feel like CEOs tend to pick up on the lingo of marketing, PLG, sales led,
Hmm.
leads. But at the end of the day, they don't know what it takes to get those motions in motion
Right.
and have, to your point, unrealistic expectations in terms of timing. So what are the leading indicators? I feel like there's some leading indicators here, right? Revenue isn't going to show up tomorrow,
Right.
right? But what are some of those initial KPIs that make CEOs feel like things are happening? Is it ultimately leads? Is there something higher? Is there like, we got to meet them where they are and quell their anxiety of like, I just spent a bunch of money with you. I hired you as a marketer, 150 plus. in terms of your salary, like, I need this like yesterday. Because normally, it's the other fun thing about CEOs is they don't generally hire marketing until they have something to sell, and then they want to sell it like yesterday. So we kind of
Right.
show up to the game a little late.
Right.
Um, so it's like, what are some of those leading indicators? What's some of those metrics you help bring them along for the ride?
So it varies. However, it's completely predicated on how you're defining those indicators. To them, a lead is going to be something quite different than what you would call a lead. Let's just take life cycle stages, right? What's an
Sure.
MQL? Like what is that? Ask 5 people, they'll all say different things.
Yeah.
What are the criteria to meet that? What does a qualified lead look like to you? Um,
Because
that
there's
that type of
marketing
stuff,
qualified and there's sales qualified,
right?
and those are two totally different
And depending on
things.
how you define them, all of it could be nonsense. Because if we're going on like demographics versus psychographics, if you just want demographics, okay, let's go. Give me 50 grand. I'll just scrape everything off Zoom info. Here's your
Zoom
leads.
info. Yep, here it
Hit
is.
my goal. Like there's no marketer in the history of mankind that's ever missed a lead gen goal, right?
In that way,
Anybody?
yeah.
Exactly. So you have to have conversations about like how we're going to define those, what the correct success indicators, those type of metrics, and you have to all be on the same page. And you also have to bring in your sales leader into that conversation as well, because they need to know where there's going to be a clear handoff and then just kind of support from there, right?
Mm.
Um,
Let's talk about that for a second because the handoff is key, right?
yep.
It's like with the football analogy because I miss American football so hard, right? There's got to be a clear pass, and if you have a runner, right, and you gotta get that, even if it's just like a straight up, handoff versus a throw,
Hmm.
like it still has to be clean and ready to go. So what is a the in your opinion, in your experience, that marketing versus sales lead? When is a lead ready to rock and roll with sales? I have my own ideas. I'm gonna try and quell them. You tell me.
So I have a kind of polarizing take on this, and it could be why you know people think I'm crazy. It could also be why a lot of people want to work with me. Who knows? But the way I look at that is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter as long as sales and marketing agrees on what it is.
Okay.
As
So
long as
if
you're
there's a
as long as you're aligned on that, you're good to
sure,
go.
sure, but in your marketing opinion, right? Like we would love to hand it off right to sales and say, here you go. Like it's a lead. They downloaded a white paper. They're yours. Are they?
Uh, yeah, I would steer clear from that. It is
Okay.
no. At the end of the day, we're having um the lead gen versus demand gen debate, which is just a conversation. Like that conversation's over. We shouldn't be having that anymore. Like we need to do more of our due diligence in qualifying these leads. We need to be able to book meetings. We need to really lean into assisting sales more than just here's a bunch of email addresses. Oh yeah, we got these badge scans too. Good luck. That's not it's not cutting it. Um, you know, but for the most part, if as long as you can agree on at what stage everybody's going to take over on the sales side and they feel good about what you like all the work that you have put into making sure that that is the most qualified lead that you can put together, you're good.
Meetings booked. That's what I heard you say.
Yeah.
So we could be pretty black and white about this, folks. They
I
are
love
not ready to go to
meetings booked.
sales until they are ready to book a meeting.
Well, it's a lot of the reason that BDRs started falling under demand gen for some reason, which never really made sense to me. But I love BDRs, and that's a good middle ground, like before a handoff and booking that meeting. It helps get us qualitative data from feedback from those conversations, um, and also they end up making the best marketers. BDRs, I love stealing BDRs from going into sales, um, because they develop the brain to be curious and find actual pain points and have conversations and understand how people think. Like, come to our team. Um, but yeah, yeah, a lot of people get up in arms about that entire process, and I have at times, and I'm a pretty staunch advocate of setting clear boundaries there.
Mhm.
Um, what is reasonable? That's what we have to ask ourselves. Like, what is reasonable? We have to be able to contribute or affect an outcome in a meaningful way to justify being gold on it. And if you can't, then there is gross misalignment, and sales and marketing is either it has either been set up to fight with each other, or your marketers have just been set up to fail, and they, through no fault of their own, they just didn't know to have those difficult conversations up front about setting expectations and what is realistic and reasonable when it comes to outcomes.
Let's go back to timing because that's so hard. And especially now, I feel like maybe as marketers we're using it as a crutch, maybe we're not. I don't know, but the buying cycle is longer. It's taking longer for buyers to want to book a call. I feel like we've lost trust with buyers. Is that fair?
When did we have it?
I mean, yeah, I think that's fair too. I feel like we've really like created a chasm though. Like we've never really had it, but we're just digging ourselves into a bigger hole. To your point of what you said earlier about the CISO buyers in general, in particular, who never had trust with anybody to begin with, whether alone marketing. So, how do we?
Well, I
How do
wouldn't
we
say
build
that they
that
don't
back?
necessarily trust. Um, they're just class skeptics.
Yeah,
That's why they're awesome at what they do. Um,
world
yeah,
class.
just how their brain works.
So, how do we specifically with these tough audiences like CISOs, like developers, like even ourselves, we as marketers don't trust marketing. How do we start building those bridges back to say, we want to work with you, we want to help you, we want to have your best interest, and we want to make sure you're in the driver's seat of making those decisions? What are some, I want to get a little bit more tactical here in closing out so people feel like they have something to walk away with, but like, how can people start to think about building that bridge with their audience to their audience in a way that is trustworthy to say we're with you?
Listen to them, talk to them, and ask them how you can do better. What are their actual pain points? What do we do that you hate? And then as soon as you ask them that, shut your mouth and take notes.
Danny Wolf is world class at this. If you need a lesson in this, go check out Danny Wolf's work for sure.
Absolutely.
So what are some of the things, as somebody who's studied Danny's work, as somebody who's doing this work yourself, give us a taste. We have to go do this work. We can't, I'm not trying to skip the queue here, jump the line, but help us understand of like, what does some of that work mean in terms of what these CISOs and what terms of what this audience is saying of what they do like and what they don't like.
So, step number 0 in that process is deep introspection and developing a level of self awareness in your own efforts. because you can't approach them with a certain set of questions if you don't know what you're actually doing first. And so you need to be so well versed in the ways that the language that you're using, in your copy, in your emails. Like, what are you actually saying? What's the voice of the brand? Are you trying to scare people? Are you trying to ram some features down someone's throat? Like, get third party validation. You know, get someone objective and unbiased to look at that. Someone that you trust. And then look at your tactics. Okay, you've got what you're trying to, you've got the payload you're trying to deliver. Now, what are the exploits you're trying to run? Okay, so are you are we sending a bunch of cold emails? Why? Do we know that all that information's correct? Like, they're defenders of information. You really think you have their correct email address? Sure about that? Um, uh, what are you just spamming them on LinkedIn, sending them in mails? Are you calling them on the phone? These people don't have time to save time, much less answer any phone call. Um, you have to audit everything that you do and have um, a great understanding of how it looks from an outside perspective. And a lot of times marketers don't have that because we're under so much pressure to just deliver something. And that's where you get into random acts of marketing, where there's not a holistic approach to how we're going to go to market with this thing, right? Um, Once you think you have a grasp on your side of the fence, you've got to do some direct outreach. It starts with your customers. Um, Start trying to get into conversations with them, not only your customers, but if you can do it, an extremely valuable resource is to go to your CRM, sort by closed, lost, start at the top,
Interesting. Not
and keep
closed
going.
won,
Yep.
closed lost.
Yep.
And what you
Because
say to those folks, because they turned you down. So it's like showing up after a date and being like, hey, I I know you didn't want to go on a second date. That's cool and all, but I kind of like to tell me why. Oh, that's hard.
marketers are in a they're very uniquely qualified to do this kind of qualitative research. Um, because if you have a closed lost account and someone in sales goes after it, they're going to think that you're chasing them down the street and they're going to run away from you as fast as humanly possible.
That's fair.
But if a marketer talks to a closed lost account and goes, what was it? I don't, and just produce the narrative of, I don't have any skin in the game, man. I'm just trying to get better at what my team's trying to put out there. We know that, there's some missteps in our messaging or something. We've done a lot of auditing, and anything you could give us would be greatly appreciated. Point us in some direction. I don't have anything to sell. I'm just trying to do better by you.
God, that's so fascinating because so often we go after our existing customers and why they chose us and why me versus looking at why not me.
It's self-serving.
That's hard.
It's self-serving. And a lot of the times when you're going after your own customers and trying to get this, they will see that as, oh, they just want me to give a quote. They want me to just speak really well of them. If you're going after closed lost, you have to live in the face of that rejection. You have to confront it and admit that something you didn't resonate.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to get better unless you know what it is and then you execute on it. And trust me, our buyers will tell you what you did. You just have to have that. Yeah, you have to have the conversation, and you have to come from a place of pure, genuine authenticity
and curiosity.
Do not ask anything from them.
Yeah, I'm not here to
at
sell you.
all.
You've already
No.
said no. That's cool. I just want to know why so that I can help my marketing team do better to serve your audience better. For sure.
Right.
No, I think that's so important. Let's talk about real quick, Clark, because we are at time and I want to be cognizant of everyone's energy, including yours. But this is fascinating. In terms of when you're brought into a company that already has an existing marketing and sales system working. I don't want to say working in the sense of like they're working, but in that they're up and running, and now you're coming in to figure out why they aren't working. What's sort of your first go to help them, that therapy session that you sort of talked about, right? So, like, how do you bring them together?
I'm going to ask them what they think the problem is first, because I need to know where everybody's head's at. Is everybody pointing fingers? Um, does someone know and someone else not know? Um, is it an issue of the data not being clean?
Mm.
Are there interpersonal issues? Like, what's really going on? Is everybody burned out? Does everybody just hate this? You know, that happens. Um, yeah, you can't help unless you don't know. It's the same approach that I take in doing um, qualitative research. Figure out what you're working with before you try to fix something or run 1,000 miles an hour in the wrong direction.
There's a clear, lovely pattern here. That's why I love this show. There's a clear, lovely pattern here that we could all take away in terms of how we show up in curiosity to figure out the bigger picture of whether it's the CEO's fear of what they're trying to get after and what their notion of marketing is versus what we know it to be, what sales thinks marketing is versus what it can be and how it can support them, to what everyone thinks it is right now based off of their current situation of how we show up and ask those really intentional questions, even of our own buyers or not buyers, if we're going after closed lost, to say, how have we supported you in making this decision or not? And even though they didn't choose us, doesn't mean we didn't help them make that decision, but understanding them as people and sitting in the questions versus the finger pointing and telling people what to do is a huge leg up in how we all can show up for each other. So, Clark, I'm so grateful. Did I capture that? Any last words? Anything I missed that you want to just tie a pretty bow on this for us, Clark?
You know, if you're a marketer out there that is anxious about having a difficult internal conversation, just do it. Just do it.
Got to rip off the
Because
band-aid.
rip off the band-aid. Think of it this way. Um, the longer you don't know the answers to the questions that you have, the worse it's going to get. If you start having just an authentic, genuine dialogue with whoever, doesn't matter, customers, internal, close lost, whatever. If you approach it from the perspective of someone that just genuinely wants to be better and wants to lift everybody else up together, then if anyone at that company has a problem with that, dust off that resume. Because you don't want to let anyone get in the way of what you know will make you more effective at your job. And anybody that stands in the way of that is very misguided. And it's up to you to make the very difficult decision of, do you want that paycheck or do you want to just ride this as long as you can? It's a hard choice. It really is. It really is. You know, and I totally understand that not everybody thinks like that. You know, it's a job. Cool. Respect. But in my experience, especially with the people that I've had on Dimension Therapy, with all the DMs that I've gotten and the support from people just saying, "Yeah, I feel heard. Like this is not. I didn't know that this went on in other places. Like if you're in one of those positions, like reach out to me, another marketer, somebody you trust. Like just get your head right. Just get your head on straight and figure out what the real path looks for you."
And be curious and ask the right questions. Which, yes to all of that. Yes to all of that. I'm so grateful, Clark. Thank you so much for this conversation. Before we head out, you are more than a marketer, even though right now it is all consuming because it's what we do and it's what we love. Outside of being a CEO of Ronan, as well as being a demand gen marketer and running demand gen therapy, what are you most looking forward to in 2024 now that we've figured out how to live with this thing? The dust has, I say, settled lightly. It definitely doesn't still impact us to some degree, but it is what it is, and there's a path forward. So, what are you most looking forward to?
I mean, my gut reaction wants to say new Lego sets that are coming out in the spring.
Like what?
Oh, there's all sorts. It's
What's your favorite? Which one are you most looking forward to?
um. Oh, I don't know.
Oh, well, now I
Well,
need links because I have my own Lego sets over here. I got
I
some
mean,
Mandalorian. I got some Orchid. I got
there's
Hedwig. Like
there's
I know you
Hogwarts.
got Harry
That's
Potter out there.
there's
Yes, to
a
that.
log
So
cabin over there. Yeah. Um.
yes, so yes to Lego. I
Oh
love
yeah.
the sets that are coming. I have the whole front set. Yes, I can say that. I'm ashamed, but also grateful to my husband who bought it for me because I love it. Um, love putting it
You know,
together.
I'm just looking forward to touching grass.
Oh,
You know, and just taking full advantage of um the realization that I've had that I can walk away from this desk anytime I want. And we all can. You know, start scheduling meetings for 45 minutes instead of an hour. Get up, walk around. You know, just take care of yourself.
yes, that. Yes, yes to that. It is time. The time is nigh and overdue. Clark, I am so grateful for this conversation. Where can people find you? What's the best place? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn for sure. That's where the vast majority of my musings are. DemandGenTherapy.com, DeployRonan.com. But yeah, feel free, hit me up in the DMs. Anything that's going on, if I can't help you, I'll find somebody that will
Amen to that.
or
Clark,
can.
I'm so grateful. And thank you to those who joined us. Trevor, Richard, I see you. I love that you're here. Thank you for chiming on in with those sales expertise. If you liked this episode, please like, subscribe, and share. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps cybersecurity and complex brands get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you'd like to be a guest, if you are a cybersecurity or a SaaS or data management platform marketer and you want to come tell your story, I am so here for it. DM me. I'd love to have you on the show. Thank you all so much. Clark, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.